Okay. Good day, everyone. So today I would like to share to you about the Educ 4.0 interactive pedagogies, strategies, and approaches. Okay, so these are is our overall objectives for this learning. By the end of the workshop, participants should be able to explain the principles of Educ 4.0, differentiate traditional instruction from interactive and student-centered pedagogies, and apply practical Educ 4.0 teaching strategies in classroom settings, design learning experiences that promote collaboration, creativity, communication, critical thinking, and digital literacy. And lastly, is integrate technology meaningfully using interactive approaches. So let's start with the first section, which is the Understanding Education 4.0 and the shift in teaching. Okay, so as we begin, I want us to reflect on one important question. Are we preparing students for the future or for the past? Because the reality is the world our students will enter is changing very quickly. So we have the AI, the automation, digital transformation, and new technologies are reshaping industries and even careers. So many jobs today may disappear while completely new jobs will emerge. So today, our focus is not simply about using technology in class. Our focus is about how we redesign learning to make students future ready. So as we continue, this is also part of our short reflection. This question, what jobs do you think will still exist in 15 years? What skills will students need even if AI becomes more powerful? And what classroom practices should disappear already? Okay, so this is a very good question to answer. What is Education 4.0? So, um, for uh, to define what is Education 4.0, we I would like to connect this with what we call the Industrial Revolution. So Education 4.0 is connected in the fourth industrial revolution or the Industry 4.0, which includes the AI, robotics, automation, big data, digital transformation. Now, because the world changed, education also needs to change. So there are a lots of shift in terms of education that is aligned with this kind of industry that we have today. Now, the Industrial Revolution, of course, started with the Industry 1.0, where there are the industries focus on mechanization, the use of steam power, the weaving loom, such like that. And then for Industry 2.0, this is when we focus on the mass production, the assembly line, electrical energy, and that's where as well the birth of factories. Industry 3.0, this is when we integrate already automation, the use of computers and electronics. And as of today, as I mentioned, we are now in the Industry 4.0, where cyber physical systems, Internet of Things, and networks are the focus. Now, in connection with the Industry 1.0, we also have the Educ 1.0. This was mainly teacher-centered. So teacher talks, students listen. So memorization and rote learning were common because society during the time focused on agriculture. We also have the Educ 2.0, and this is where education became more standardized during this industrial revolution. Schools operated almost like factories. So same lessons, same pacing, same expectations. The goal was to prepare workers for factories and offices. Now, sad to say, a lot of schools right now, yeah, even in the Philippines, a lot of schools are still stuck in the education 2.0. And then here comes the 3.0 of education. This is when technology entered classrooms. So the computers, the internet, the digital presentation, the online research. But many classrooms were still teacher-centered despite technology use. So what happened is they are stuck with education 2.0, and then they just added the technology into their classroom. So technology is present in the classroom, but the approach with the pedagogies are still the same with the Educ 2.0, which is very traditional and teacher-centered. And of course, here comes the Educ 4.0, which is the focus of our learning for today. This is where the focus is no longer can students memorize. The focus becomes can students think, solve problems, collaborate, and create. So that's the focus that we are aiming in this education. Now, Education 4.0 is a student-centered approach where learning becomes interactive, technology-supported, collaborative, flexible, and connected to real life. So, in a Philippine context example, for a traditional setup, teacher lectures for 45 minutes. Students copy notes, then quiz after discussion. But in Education 4.0 version, students investigate a real problem, use technology for research, collaborate in groups, present solutions, and teacher facilitates learning. This is a very good example, flooding in the Philippines. So, in a traditional way of teaching, teacher explains causes of flooding. Students memorize definitions. But for EDUC 4.0, students analyze why flooding happens in their barangay, create disaster preparedness plans, and interview community members, and use Canva to make information campaigns. So, in Education 4.0, it does not mean removing discipline or structure. It means students become active participants instead of passive receivers. So I think we are all familiar um, the difference between teacher-centered and student-centered. So we all know when it's student-centered, the learning is with the students. So teachers are not the only source of knowledge. There should be lots of interaction, discussions between the teacher and the students. Okay, so instead of copy this definition in a traditional classroom, we say explain this concept to your seatmate using your own example. So, a very good question in here is memorization bad? Okay. Actually, no. Memorization is still useful. It has its own value, but we don't stop in memorization. We would like to teach the students that every knowledge acquired should be utilized or used well to create something, and that's where the application comes in. So another is the passive learning versus the active learning. Now, um, many, there are teachers who sees passive learning as a bad as a bad thing. But actually, in reality, we also need passive learning. Passive learning is when students sit down and receive concepts from the teacher, and there are times that is equally important as well. So students learn the concept first, and then the rest of the time should be active learning, wherein they apply the knowledge or concept that they just learned from the passive learning. So my practice is maximum of 10 minutes. If the concept is too long, maybe you can stay after 15 minutes. But my practice, personally, I just talk for 10 minutes, and then the rest of the time should be hands-on creation or application of the knowledge that we are learning on that particular lesson. Now, what if the concept is so broad, it needs time. So that's when you use chunking. So you chunk the concept into several meetings so that you only have focus sub-concept as you are learning the whole concept, so that you still apply the 10 minutes passive learning and then the rest of the time as active learning. Okay, that is I co-authored this book wherein there's lots of activities that is aligned with the Educ 4.0. So there are role plays, debate, podcast. There's a lot of creation that we included in this workbook that we wrote. Okay, there are skills needed in Educ 4.0. We call it as the four C's. The first C is the critical thinking. The second C is the creativity. And then the next one is collaboration. And lastly is the communication. So as teachers, our role is not simply to teach students what to think. We teach them how to think. With that, we jump on the role of the teachers. In traditional teacher's role, we are the information giver. But for the Edu 4.0, teachers are facilitator, coach, mentor, and learning designer. For the old setup, teacher checks if students copied notes. But for the new setup, teacher checks if students understand and can apply learning. So students may forget what we lecture, but they rarely forget what they experience. So that ends our first session about understanding about um, education 4.0. Now, for the next one will be the interactive pedagogies and student-centered approaches. Okay, see you.